Boom shakalaka, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters around the world. It is your boy Krishool, aka the Esoteric Noetic, and I am going to be reacting to this video, this parody Jubilee video of Thanos versus the 20 Avengers. Oh, I'm excited about this video. Ever since I watched Avengers, love that movie, by the way. The third one, right? Marvel movie. I thought that was one of the best movies ever, period. Unequivocally, unassailably, definitively, right? In my opinion. And Thanos, damn, I thought to myself, he has a lot to answer for. And the justification he had of, spoiler alert, I mean, everyone should have seen the movie by now, of essentially getting rid of half of the planet, just like that, and then justifying it, saying that it was necessary. It is the classic bad thing to do, evil character mentality, and I love that. I love the fact that Thanos was one of these characters that was so noble and so virtuous in the fact that he was very honest about everything that he was doing, right? But that by no means justified what he did. And it's the classic thing that I find within the most evil characters. They're not Machiavellian, mischievous, evil, sneaky kind of like like you see. I have this image of the Jew that is kind of like clenched, up to no good, won't tell you what's going on, like some kind of a Bill Gates character, like coming up with all these machinations and lying to people. No, he's very open, very noble about it, right? In the sense that he would have some sense of honor about it. But what he was actually doing was, by all means, considered to be evil, right? Getting rid of half of the population. And I love that dynamic because it's something that you often see with conquerors. They have this sense of honor and power. Most of the conquerors over the last 1,000 years or so have started wars on entire countries. I mean, they're still doing it to this day with simply the idea that they wanted to conquer because might was right, and ultimately they wanted to bring peace and civility towards a region. I mean, this is the mentality of Genghis Khan. What's so beautiful is that you can actually look at the writings of Genghis Khan, the interactions he would have with various figures of the time, noblemen and popes and so forth, and he would always make this argument that it is his righteous motivation to take over these lands because ultimately it is the only thing that's going to bring peace to the lands. So he'd be willing to kill millions and how many ridiculous amounts of people it was in order to achieve this. And of course, it was all necessary and all acceptable because he has this greater good mentality, which is the plea of every tyrant, every madman. In any kind of classical moral system, that is the underlying argument of tyrants. And I love the fact that he played this character so well. Thanos is the epitome of a brilliant, powerful, evil person. They're words that you don't often use together, but the guy was so incredibly powerful, so incredibly intelligent, and still had this sense of honor. Wasn't mischievous as such, was just very open and transparent about all the stuff that he did. Thanos in the Marvel universe is considered to be a very honest person, which really doesn't mean that much if you're fucking killing innocent people, right? But it made it all the more interesting watching how he would conduct himself, and his justification was absolutely diabolical. It's the only thing that will address this problem, to get rid of half of the population. And this is a great opportunity to listen to his justifications. And I'm going to react to this video. Let's see what Thanos has to say for himself.
I am Thanos, and today I am surrounded by 20 Avengers. My first claim is that everything I did was to relieve the universe of the suffering it could not bear. My plan to remove half of all life was not cruelty, it was mercy. Removing half of life was the least harmful choice.
Well, that's a claim. That there's a lot of assumptions there. It's like the universe could not bear what it was currently undergoing. So we're speaking for all the gazillion people on this universe. These are collectivist arguments. They're so inaccurate. It's like, yeah, in large, I would agree that the vast majority of people were unhappy in circumstances, but these are the vicissitudes of life. There are some people that are unhappy and others that are happy, and we all have moments where we're happy and we're not happy. But the idea of just making overarching generalization and saying that the universe, which is encompassing all these individuals, is unhappy, therefore it's justified, but based on the fact that you're unhappy, for me to get rid of your unhappiness is kind of insane. It's like seeing someone that's going through a cold, right? A really bad cold, and you're like, you're suffering. Let me cut you in half, right? In order to alleviate your pain. And you're like, well, hey, I don't want to die. Well, it is my duty to alleviate the universe, and you are considered to be part of the universe from all this pain and suffering, as Thanos would say. How about don't do that because I don't want you to? Of course, that never comes into the realm of consideration with Thanos, and it's this mentality that I know what's best for everyone else. This is the mentality of tyrants, right? But the most disturbing thing is that I am doing what I'm doing because it is good and it's just. That's when it becomes delusional. That's the mentality that, because I kind of find evil people in history really interesting when they are dubious about what they're doing. They don't know if it's the right thing to do because there's a human quality that you can relate to, right? It's like, should I do this? You get the sense that they really didn't know what to do. But when they have this righteous sense of justice and they're doing what they're doing, and they're doing unspeakable, utterly immoral things, and they're saying that they're doing it because it's necessary, it makes the most beautiful stories. It's fundamentally disturbing. Not only evil, arguably, because evil is a very difficult thing in terms of assessing someone's character, but in terms of the action, I think it becomes very clear if you're working under a classical notion of right and wrong, things that actually harm someone, that violate their rights, their natural rights, that don't want done to themselves, and so forth. Violating the consent, that kind of framework, which is what we model the classical justice system under, that mentality, it's very clear that what Thanos was doing was wrong, right? Obviously, we don't even have to assume these people didn't want to die, and even if that was the case, like, you should at least confirm with them whether or not they want to go ahead with it, rather than just snapping your fingers and getting rid of them. But anyway, before I rant on too much, just the justification that you have to do this in order to address the scarcity problem, the resource problem. Why not create more resources? This is always a hallmark of also evil people. This is my personal opinion. The most evil people seem to lack this quality that is inherent within, I would say, beauty, right? People that are truly manifesting the qualities of God. That's imagination. To lack the ability to consider that there are other alternatives and simply just go with, well, this is the only way to do this. I have to do it this way. I must kill you because there is no other way. There's no other way to address this problem. It's such a demented mentality to have. It's like, yeah, there are an infinite matter of things that you could do in order to address this problem, right? Considering that Thanos has the Infinity Stones, which gives him the ability to essentially do anything. It's kind of like having a genie. Granted, you can't wish for more wishes. You can do what you want. You can essentially ask for anything you want. And from what I understand, there are a few limitations in regards to executing the Infinity Stone in the Marvel Universe. But ultimately, there are many other alternatives. But he's chosen the one that is more, well, in line with his quest to bring peace to the world. Just get rid of half of the people.
You know, Thanos, I never understood. How can you live 1,000 years, devote all those years to one problem, all of that just to end up with such a stupid, hollow plan?
The plan was proven. It was executed multiple times, and it worked. The entire universe united against it, and not one faction could stop it.
Until we did.
And you had to risk the existence of the multiverse to do that.
That's interesting. So Thanos has done this a number of times where he is, from what I understand, based on the context of this video, he has eliminated half of the people within a particular nation. That is some Genghis Khan shit, right? In order to address their problem. It's kind of like, I care so much about the world. I see these families that are struggling. I'm just gonna cut your families in half. Just take. It's kind of delusional. It is. It's. And the thing is, Marvel stories are usually very sophisticated. I actually have a lot of respect for the Marvel Universe. If you really understand the nuances of the Marvel Universe, they mapped out not only these superheroes, but there's a whole hierarchy of superheroes. They even have a character that is essentially God, the one above all. But I won't go into that. And it all makes sense how they beautifully narrated this this universe, even multiverses, right? That all seem to make sense. But the character of Thanos, I think, is actually realistic because he is a little insane. And that's the thing about evil. Inherently, there is an insanity to evil. Evil is, it's, people have this, I think a lot of people have this mindset that evil is perfectly logical and rational, but there is also a lack of this imagination, this generative quality that I think you'll find within all manifestations of God when they're expressing their full potential, and that is this ability to look outside of your rationale, your reason, and just see things intuitively through your unconscious, the subconscious, the superconscious, and realize that there's always another way to do something, right? Rather than appealing to there is no other way, this is the only way. Like the classic Doctor Strange line in the grand calculus of the multiverse, this is a small sacrifice in the greater scheme of things, which is the argument that it is the ends justify the means, that essentially any sacrifice is considered necessary, or pretty much every sacrifice, because in his infinite understanding, he can see this leading to the greater good, and has this mentality, there's no other way to do this. When in reality, I think a true genius would be able to see that there are other ways of addressing this issue. Anyway, I'm ranting, but Thanos is such a fascinating character, and his justification for this seems somewhat limiting, that the only way to address this problem is to essentially snap his fingers and to get rid of half the population. And the fact that he's done this time and time and time again, I mean, this reinforces his worldview. We all tend to have a worldview that has been reinforced. We find things that work. If we've done things over and over again, we're finding success, then it would make sense that you execute something in a way that you've seen results from. So it does make sense, but I just find his character to be somewhat insane and somewhat brilliant. But I guess these make the best villains. Anyway, let's go on.
And what did you do next to solve the problem? Nothing. And my planning is bad.
What we do is never perfect, and we admit that. The problem is that we often don't have a choice, unlike
I didn't have any...
So fact check. The Avengers have admitted to a few small errors, like creating a homicidal robot, dropping a city from space, starting a global civil war, and time traveling to undo their own disasters, and yet people still cheer for them at this point. Okay, fact check. Yes, the Avengers have admitted to that, from what I understand, right? But the idea of categorizing, I hate how people have this completely warped sense of categorization when it comes to ethics and morality. Like, we're told there is a clear distinction. This is what you call a crime, initiating forced violence. So going out and killing someone, raping someone, right? The idea of doing an action that unwantingly leads to harming others. Like, let's say I'm driving fast down the road, okay? I'm not trying to kill anyone, but I'm just driving at a very fast rate. Somehow, based on this worldview of potentiality and safety and so forth, people feel as if it's in the same category. It's not even something that is immoral in any kind of rational, logical sense. The idea of doing the latter. The Avengers creating a homicidal robot, that AI robot that they created, what was it called? Help me out. Anyway, you know the robot I'm talking about. I think it was like Vision or something initially. Anyway, maybe I'm mixing things up. My Marvel Universe understanding is a little rusty. But ultimately, they didn't do that with the intention of trying to take over the world. And that matters. Like, if you were doing something with the intent to kill, like you can make an argument that is a threat. When someone is actually trying to kill you, that is trying to initiate force against you, picks up a gun, is telling you they're going to kill you, or they're clearly in the process of killing you, that would be a violent action. When someone is simply doing something that may result in something that may be potentially harmful and calling that an evil, that's a completely ridiculous argument to any person that has a good understanding of natural rights, or I'd just say justice or ethics. And the fact that people often like to put these in the same categories is what is wrong with the entire sense of justice in the world. And I think the Marvel Universe understands these kind of things. I actually have a lot of respect for the way in which the Marvel Universe looks at villains and looks at heroes, because Captain America is supposed to be the best representation of someone that actually has a strong sense of justice in the universe. Plant yourself like a tree beside the river of truth. This guy is the kind of guy that doesn't he's incapable of doing something that's wrong. It's just not who he is, right? The idea of Captain America taking a baby and killing it because it's the only way to save the universe, right? Which is something, spoiler alert, that apparently the population was trying to advocate for in the most recent Marvel movie, Fantastic Four, that whole kind of thing, like, we please sacrifice this baby in order to save the planet. Like, that kind of stuff would just never cross the mind of an actual good person. But it's the mindset of a utilitarian. It's the mindset of a tyrant like Thanos. It is the mindset of, I would say, a lot of people in this universe, because ultimately they have acquiesced to this mind virus that, hell, all that is necessary is, I mean, the necessity argument is fundamentally key, that we must do this because it's the only other way. They don't have the ability to see the distinction between actual evils and the potential for unwanted consequences and so forth. And this fact-checking statement kind of exemplifies this. It's like, let's put these things that the Avengers have tried to do in order to mitigate a very difficult situation in the same category as Thanos actively trying to just kill people in order to address the problem. Oh wait, we're gonna call you a bad guy because you have tried to make the world a better place by creating a robot, or maybe creating a human being, and now it's led to the death of innocent people. Something that's not in you're not morally culpable for. Or, I mean, dropping a city on planet Earth. I would love to know the circumstances for that, but I can confidently say that the Avengers characters, they're never in the business, as long as Captain America is leading them, of doing horrible things with the intention of, like, trying to just harm people. They don't play this utilitarian where Kings of the World game where you essentially look at people as pawns and we try to sacrifice some people. That's the argument of tyrants. That's the argument of figures like Thanos. People that don't have a moral compass, always appeal to everything is everything, appeal to, hey, look, it's just my perspective, appeal to this is necessary for the triumph of good. That's the mentality of the Thanos. Definitely not the Avengers.
Choice either.
You had an abundance of choice. You just wanted to kill. But violence doesn't solve problems. You were smart enough to find the stones, but not smart enough to think of doubling the resources instead of killing half of the people.
Double the resources? The more there is to take, the fiercer the battle to possess it. An excess of resources can be just as dangerous.
I'll give him that. Okay, so that's true. Potentially speaking, that is true. That's actually an interesting point, that the more resources you have, potentially people might fight harder for them. Maybe. And you can go in so many directions with this kind of stuff. This is, but like, there is no guarantee that you taking either action, unless you have, even if you have Doctor Strange's, damn it, I'm gonna be so annoyed at myself and probably snap my fingers and take off the planet if I don't find the name of this device that Doctor Strange has, the Eye of Agamotto or something like that. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's called that. But you know the device I'm talking about, right? Like, he can see the future. I mean, even with that, and even if he has that ability, I don't believe the future is set in stone, but even with that ability, you're not going to know definitively that your action will bring about the desired result.
Just as destabilizing as the lack of them.
That is total bullshit.
I speak from experience. I have witnessed planets die from starvation.
No credible evidence suggests that too many resources destabilize planets. Historically, most societies have collapsed from abundance or actually destroyed by greed, incompetence. Wait. No credible evidence suggests that too many resources destabilizes planets. Yeah, I mean, of course, that's very subjective. Credible evidence. I mean, I tend to agree with that. Historically, most societies that collapse from abundance were actually destroyed by greed, incompetence. Yeah, I'd agree. That's obvious the case, but and it would make sense that human nature. You tend to see societies have conflict when they're battling for resources. I mean, that's typically when you see wars being fought. Most wars have been fought over resources. But granted, humans will fight over anything. Humans will fight over women, will fight over... I mean, you could say that was a resource as well, all right? Like, you could make that argument. But fundamentally, I don't think having more resources is likely going to perpetuate destabilization. But this is the problem with this mentality. It's kind of like you have a crystal ball and you can see the future, and you make these assumptions in regards to what people are going to do. And it's one thing to have these assumptions, but when you act in a violent way based on them, that, look, in order to save the world, because I have this worldview that people are going to die, I'm now going to kill people, that's when it becomes an absolute tragedy. I mean, there is no justification for this kind of behavior. This is the kind of stuff people do. This is what's going on in Palestine right now. I could not make this video without making reference to Israel versus Palestine. It's like, on one side, the argument is, well, unless, of course, we get rid of Hamas and we drop all these bombs, killing all of these innocent people that are not responsible. I mean, how the hell is a child supposed to be culpable for shit for anything for that matter, all right? Like, but these people are always trying to link some kind of moral culpability to the Palestinians. But this argument that's made by, let's say, the Israeli government, right, just to be very clear over here, generally speaking, is that it's, one, necessary, and that these people, these Palestinians, are not entirely innocent. It's completely, I mean, from a rational standpoint, unequivocally, unassailably, that is a stupid argument. If you're making a definitive statement, you're assigning moral culpability to people that have actually done, some of them have done nothing, and you're making this argument that, two, it's the only way necessary in order to address this problem. And there's just so many parallels between what Thanos does and what all tyrannical governments do. This projection of what you can see in the future. It's the only way to address this problem, to get rid of these people. Otherwise, well, it's only going to get worse for us. Well, it's never justification. The reality is it's never justified committing violence on someone when you were the initiator. And all arguments around safety, all this nonsense, people that want to argue that there is no other alternative, they have no choice. These are people that are lacking the inner fortitude, the gumption, in order to take ownership of what is really going on. Therefore, they cast these spells, these amorphous, subjective, nonsensical arguments in order to justify the immorality of what they're doing. And I don't see Thanos as the kind of person that would do that, but he is very much doing that right now by saying that there was no other way. So, I mean, even though Thanos, I think, is a very noble character, I think he has convinced himself, he's deceived himself into believing that this was the best alternative, when in fact it was probably just the easiest alternative.
Yes, but I have also witnessed society's collapses from having too much, from the greed and endless fighting that abundance fuels.
I don't buy that. But even if your goal was to specifically limit the growth of population because you think it's the best plan, there are many other ways to do that, like random sterilization of half of the population, or locking the populations to a maximum number.
What? Why is the Hulk sounding like some totalitarian government? Well, yeah, I mean, I hate these kind of arguments. Like, well, yeah, like, we didn't kill people, we just locked them up in their homes, and we just sterilize them, and we just cut up their people. I mean, what? These are all I always find it interesting. There are a lot of people, right, when you have a look at what went on just a few years ago with the lockdowns and whatnot, there were people that were called, there are people we would call extremists, right? People that would say, hey, look, let's get rid of people that are, okay, like the Nazis are always a classic example. If you go out and you kill innocent people, or you kill people, right, you kill the other side, you're considered an extremist, right? If you just don't like these people based off of their race and so forth. However, there would be an argument made that if you're simply just advocating for them to be locked up in their homes, you're advocating for them to be masked. I mean, this is like Goebbels. This is the argument that the propaganda minister for Hitler would make when the Nazis were dragging the Jews into the gas chambers, right? Goebbels, being the most compassionate person, would say, well, you shouldn't be dragging them by the hair. He'd say this kind of stuff to the SS guards. I mean, you should take better care of them when you're dragging them into the gas chambers. And it's this comparison that, well, one is a lesser evil. Arguably, yes, but fundamentally, they both should not be on the table. Like the idea that, hey, it's okay to drag someone by the hair into a gas chamber, or it's not okay to drag someone by the hair into the gas chamber, rather, but it is, it's okay to, so it's not okay to drag someone by the hair. But if you drag them, as long as you are, Yeah, it's just that kind of comparison. It's just, I mean, who cares? At the end of the day, you're still dragging them into the gas chamber. At the end of the day, you're still doing something that you shouldn't do to them. Whether or not you are locking someone in their home, or whether or not you are sterilizing them, or whether or not you're killing them. I mean, you can make the argument that one is lesser, but at the end of the day, there's still things that I think, if we're being honest, you should not do to someone. Unless, of course, they are violating you. They've actually done. You can make this. You can make the subjective argument on what's an appropriate reaction once someone has actually committed some kind of harm against you, responding in some kind of appropriate amount of force. But the idea of being the aggressor and being able to do horrible things to someone as a way of addressing a problem, it's not how ethics is supposed to work. Unless, of course, you are a moral relativist, which I definitely, as I'm sure you're all aware, I'm not a proponent of.
Of individuals, in a way that once that point is reached, it becomes impossible to get pregnant until someone dies. I don't really agree with even those, but they are still so much better than genocide.
You really think that?
Okay, so there is the caveat there. He's not necessarily saying that, but he kind of is. He's putting that as and I agree, it is a better alternative. I mean, there is something to be said for a lesser evil, but when confronted with the option of a lesser evil, I mean, the good person chooses neither. I mean, that's the classic train tracks dilemma. Whereas a lot of people will say, well, it's okay because this is lesser, and you can make all of these arguments in regards to why you think it's lesser. Both should be off the table.
Half of all life.
You think they wouldn't find a way around it? We live in a universe where magic and technology define nature every day.
Oh, I fucking love this. Is so good. They're making some really cool arguments here that are fun, but they're also philosophically and just sound in regards to the reality of what's going on right now. So sources close to Thanos say he used the Mind Stone to come up with the best arguments to defend his plan. Listening to him now, unfortunately, even an object of infinite intelligence couldn't fix that logic. That's interesting. The Mind Stone. I mean, you could replace the Mind Stone for AI. Like, all right, you could ask AI what the best way to deal with the problem of the human population might be, and the AI would probably give you some. In fact, I remember hearing a story in regards to this. You could test this out at home, right? Like, how do we best address this problem right now? And of course, people will say, well, AI has this infinite amount of intelligence and so forth, but no one really knows the answer in any definitive capacity. I mean, these are all just projections, but to use something like that and then to come up with a plan and saying that, well, this is the best alternative, maybe, but it definitely is not the right one. I mean, these kind of conversations are fantastic because whereas this might sound like it is some kind of Marvel fictitious universe, these all have relevance to the real world. I mean, we could take on the Thanos scenario. Hey, let's get rid of half of the people. I mean, this is the whole argument that was made by most of the conquerors throughout history. Bill Gates more recently. I mean, this whole idea of population control, sterilizing people, ultimately violating their rights in the interests of the greater good, which many people have made, many tyrants have made, which governments make on a daily basis. It's this risk management system. So whereas people would say, oh, you're not actually killing anyone, you're just depriving them of their rights, or you're just forcibly vaccinating them, right? And bearing in mind that this was actually in the books here in Australia not that long ago, that it was actually a police officer could actually hold you down and forcibly inject this not even worthy of being called a vaccine, into your body. And of course, the assumption is, well, it's just a vaccine, but fundamentally, that very well could be. Anyway, this is still YouTube, but the whole point here is that fundamentally, no one has a right to make those kind of decisions on your body. They're direct violations of the Nuremberg Code, and unless you are a squirmy individual like Loki, you cannot justify that kind of stuff within any kind of like true system that wants to respect the inalienable rights of individuals. Of course, Thanos doesn't work under that framework. Thanos just does whatever he wants because he is a warrior. He considers himself to be to be on a mission to bring about peace to the world, like a true conqueror. And whereas he has that sense of honor and the fact that he is actually a very honest person. That's one of the things that I suppose you could say is a virtue of Thanos. He doesn't lie. He's very transparent, but that just makes him a less effective evil person, because if you're going to be an evil person, a true villain, you might as well go all the way, right? But Thanos is very, very transparent about everything that he wants to do, but he just does the most evil things. Ultimately, I'd make the argument that regardless of whether or not he's an evil, devious figure like Loki, or a tyrannical psychopath like Hitler, he's ultimately the result is the same, and it's still absolutely wrong what they are doing, what these figures are doing. And we see governments often behaving in the same way, whether it's under the mentality of we're doing this in the interest of the greater good, or it's just the lesser evil. Ultimately, there's nothing wrong with us locking you in your homes, forcibly inoculating you, forcing you to wear masks under the threat of violence and so forth. They're all misdemeanors. It's all necessary. And look, then they'll try to reinterpret the laws, the Constitution, and so forth in order to justify what they're doing. These are all the moves of tyrannical people, and this is the hallmark of the most evil people throughout history. But I still respect Thanos, only in that he did what he was doing with a sense of honor. I mean, there's nothing honorable about killing innocent people, but honor in the sense that he would be transparent about everything that he was doing. It makes him an ineffective evil person, and still an evil person in my books, but definitely a more interesting character, that's for sure.
Do you honestly believe people wouldn't find a way to reproduce anyway?
On. You're really trying to convince us you had no other option when you literally held the power to reshape reality. They are called the Infinity Stones because they offer infinite possibilities. You expect us to believe you were utterly constrained?
Yes. There is probably some super complicated, highly elaborated plan that could have worked. But you used the stones. You know how hard they are to use. The more complicated the plan, the greater the risk of catastrophic.
It's important to note that this guy's B plan was to destroy and rebuild the entire universe. Real minimalist. That was probably an unnecessary fact check, but it's interesting to know that. And it's interesting to note that, apparently executing the Infinity Stones was something that was supposed to be very difficult. Only the most powerful Marvel characters had the ability to actually use this, right? This is some insider knowledge. So I think there was a point where they wanted Hulk to do it because he was the only person that could probably suffer the use of it and actually still live. But apparently executing your desire is something that is extremely difficult. So, I mean, there is an argument to the idea that it doesn't justify what he did, but he came up with the plan that he did, Thanos, because it was probably the easiest way to implement the plan based on him using the Infinity Stones.
Error. My plan was the perfect balance. Simplicity and efficiency.
And slicing existence in half doesn't risk things going wrong. Your plan is
So wait a sec, did he actually, I'm trying to understand this. I thought just half of the people, half of the entities disappeared. Were the resources slashed in half as well? Pretty sure it was just the people, right? And the universe, and this is something I find so interesting. If the universe is infinite, right? How would slicing in half make it any less, right? If you slice infinity, it's still infinity. This is a concept that is so mind-boggling, but I mean, apparently there's this concept in physics, greater infinities. So, and it makes sense. It's not something that you just hear as an abstract idea, but within the real world, you have infinity, all right, which is actually something that just never ends, right? The concept. But you can also have quantities that are actually larger than that, greater infinities. And it's in practical terms. I mean, in terms of like a length. Let's say you have one length. It's an infinity. You can devise that an infinite amount of times. But you can also have a length that is greater than that last infinity, and that is granted it is a greater amount quantity. It also has an infinitude of divisions. So it's a fascinating concept. Even if you cut the world in half, cut the universe in half, granted, cutting the world in half would make it flat. And so those flat earthers would be right. But cutting the universe in half would not make the universe flat, that's for sure. And I don't think it would it would actually really reduce, in my mind, yes, it's actually reduced the level of infinity, but it's still infinity that we're dealing with. Oh! This is such a powerful concept. This is why I love the Marvel Universe. It's a workout in the cerebral plane.
everything but efficient. A hell of things can go wrong. The first I can think about is how killing 50% doesn't leave you with 50% alive. People depend on each other. Children need parents. Communities rely on key individuals. That instantaneous loss of half of life guarantees far more than 50% dying in the ensuing
You think
chaos.
I didn't consider that? That people depend on each other?
I often make this point when I'm talking about hunters that want to just kill animals, and they say, oh, look, it's just like that animal died without pain. It was just shot and wasn't there anymore. There's no harm that was created when those animals, let's say that deer, Bambi, has a father, maybe a mother, most likely, and now you created pain. You created secondary harm by killing someone. And look, I mean, I wouldn't say that it is inherently wrong if you've done an action that is not inherently wrong and it's led to the death of someone, right? You're not responsible for all the pain that causes. But when you actively do that, when you actively cause harm, you go and kill a Bambi, you go and kill someone, right? Then you are responsible not only for the taking of that life, but also all the secondary harm and pain it caused. That's something that, from a justice, a moral culpability front, that is something that you are absolutely morally culpable for. And a lot of people don't think that. But apparently, Thanos did factor this into his equation. But I don't really think that Thanos cares much about this kind of stuff. Thanos does not seem like an empathic person. He most certainly does not seem like an empathic person. I think he's all about results and executing things in the most logical way.
Other, that losing one life can take 10 more with it? I did, but dependency is exactly why balance had to be forced. I know it causes chaos. I've seen it before. I never got to try it on my own world, but I did see it work elsewhere. Planets that followed my plan rebuilt stronger. Every time the pattern was the same. Pain first, then order. The ones who survived didn't just rebuild, they built better.
That is what you always do.
That's an interesting thought, just in terms of the reality of if the planet was to be destroyed right now. And I would say that there is evidence of this. I mean, there's the Great Deluge, the Great Flood, many historical references to this in the books, the ancient texts and so forth. It's not just an alternative historical idea, but there's actually a lot of evidence to suggest this, like the water erosions on the Pyramid of Giza and so forth. And of course, the anecdotal evidence, the actual written evidence. But let's go with the idea that the Earth has had to rebuild. Civilizations have obviously had to build in the past, but more specifically, the planet Earth has had to rebuild itself. It would make argument because you have access to some of the information from the past. It hasn't been completely lost because knowledge is never truly ever lost. I mean, even on a practical level, I mean, we say that it's been lost. There's a great flood, wiped away most of the ancient records. The Library of Alexandria, obviously lost and so forth. But there are almost always remnants of this information. And of course, on a metaphysical level, the Akashic records, everything that has ever happened is still within the subconscious, the etheric field of the planet. And we all have access to this information. So the next time we rebuild things, we have this latent ability to tap into that awareness, that information. And understandably, I would make the argument that we do things better. We are now building off of the creations of the past. So the next time you rebuild society, you have a pretty good understanding of human nature, pretty good understanding of agriculture, mathematics, the isms and so forth, and you can factor in the things that did not work in the last iteration. And each iteration, you make better improvement. This is essentially what generations are all about in terms of on a psychological level, physical level. With each iteration, there is this spiral development where we rotate, we do things again, but there is an efflorescence of consciousness. We matriculate to higher planes. We rebuild, we fall, but then we rise again. And each time, we do it better. We may not have caught up to where we were in the past. And it sounds like a ridiculous idea, right? Like, clearly we're more technologically advanced than we've ever been. But maybe in certain ways, maybe in other ways not. But each time we do it, it's arguable. I would say that it would be the theme, the proclivity of society to be doing it better. That's actually a really interesting point. Damn, I say some powerful shit. Well, Thanos says some powerful shit, and I'm kind of riffing with what he's saying.
Isn't it? You break the world, and then you talk long enough to convince yourself it was the only way. You twist every mess into proof that you were...
This is what politicians do all the time. I fucking love it. Like, they do horrible shit, like starting wars, right? Dropping bombs in countries, and then saying that they did the best thing and now it's all better. Look, I've created peace. It's like... Oh, Thanos is like every villain, but in a different way. Obviously, he's repping the purple, like me. You know, we're super villains, but ultimately, he's just a different permutation of the same kind of political tyrants that we see running the world.
And you and your friends love to talk about what's wrong. You preach your soft, easy views. A killing is bad, so you can feel clean while the universe rots the same way it always has. You had the stones, and what did you do? You used them to put everything exactly back how it was. You saved no one. You just made sure nothing changed.
Look, no matter how...
Oh, that is such a powerful delivery. It has this element of sinister, Machiavellian evil, but it also has truth within it. I mean, the reality is, I mean, they put everything back the way it was because they felt as if they did not have the authority to make changes on people's lives. I mean, this is the hallmark of a good person, I would say. It's like, yeah, I think I know what's best for you and I can do all this kind of stuff. But when we're dealing with actual people, I really should not be interfering in your life. It's what you call free will, right? It's like, yeah, I could be like, you know what? You'd be best as a dancer. You'd be best as a doctor. It might be best to create this world where everyone does X and Y, but the idea, the behavior of I would say a good leader is that you don't assert your will purely because you think it's the best thing to do. You don't think purely from a perspective of utilitarian justice, but you speak from the perspective of, do I have the right to do this kind of stuff? This is the hallmark of a choice-based system of ethics versus a control-based system of ethics, which is the distinction between tyranny versus freedom. And I would say that one of the things I've always admired about what you see within the Avengers is, obviously under the leadership of Captain America, that's typically what we see. It's like, let's not assert authority just because we have it. And of course, they're not perfect, but that tends to be the theme of the good guys within the Marvel Universe. And the tyrannical leaders want to exert control. And it's funny, we see this theme within the Marvel Universe, and I would argue within a lot of entertainment, within sci-fi movies like The Matrix and all these movies where the good guys are fighting against the bad guys. But when it comes to reality, most people seem to side with the tyrants. Most people play this game where they think about themselves, what about me, what about my family, and so forth, and then they take on the role of the tyrants and agreeing with them and saying, well, it's necessary, it wasn't that bad, it's the lesser evil. They make all of the arguments where they give up their freedom for security, where they align themselves with the tyrants because ultimately the tyrants are doing things that benefit them. There is an argument to be made that whereas we champion the freedom fighters, the people that the champion choice and humanity and so forth, for freedom for all beings on this planet, within these movies and so forth, that display such amazing sense of justice and these qualities that we can all aspire to. When we see this in the real world, we don't often act in accordance to what we tend to do when we're in the cinema, right? That's something that I think has an element of truth, that reality seems to obfuscate the mentality of people, and people become these genuflecting sycophants that will bow to the power of the state just for a little bit of mead, and compromise every principle ever forged in their minds because they deem it to be necessary in order to thrive.
How great your imaginary spreadsheet says the results are, genociding half of all existence can never be right.
I wouldn't call what I did a genocide.
You killed half of the entire universe. What are we calling it then?
I fucking love this. It's like, oh, this is classic. Well, I wouldn't call it genocide. Just we just bombed the shit out of Palestine. I mean, look, and we did this in the most humane way possible. Oh, I'm not really killing anyone here. These animals are just put to sleep. Pow. It's no pain. Wouldn't call it murder. I love how people obfuscate language in order to achieve their goals. It's like, it's so beautiful. It's beautiful.
I didn't kill them. It was a painless erasure. They weren't going to get a better ending.
Disagree. I mean, you kill it. Granted, you didn't take a knife and you didn't stab them, but you took an action that was purposely with the intent and resulted in the... I'm not going to use the word unaliving because that's a pop culture reference I fucking hate. It's retarded. In the death of that individual. I mean, to call it anything other than killing would be insanity. I mean, you can call it what you want, but yes, killing would be the appropriate term here. You killed many individuals. To say that it's not the same thing, I feel as if that's very much not like Thanos. I mean, I think Thanos would just own the fact that he did that. I wonder if deep down Thanos thinks he's a good person, but I think he's willing to accept that what he's doing is, I mean, he would say it's necessary. I would say it's fundamentally evil, but the understanding that what he's doing, the act of what he's doing is anything other than killing is that's just obfuscation. I hate my biggest pet peeve is when people do things like that. Politicians do this kind of stuff. This is what what's his name, the crazy man during the whole COVID epidemic did, trying to obfuscate language, the definition of vaccines and so forth. I mean, this is a common theme that you see with perpetuators of bullshit. Obfuscate the meaning of words in order to suit their agenda.
Even in the best case scenario, it was random and not biased. It can never be called a genocide. See it as a necessary...
You want to talk about...
Okay, this is actually a topic that has been on the public, in the public domain for quite some time now, like the definition of genocide. So intent, I think, should have some kind of merit. But I really do not care about the legal definition. I think we have a euphemistic understanding that when we say genocide, it means that you're wiping an entire race of people. Committing genocide would be the act of doing. It's a verb. It's the idea that you're in the process of trying to exterminate an entire group of people. It has not been done yet, committing genocide. If you commit a genocide, that's objective. That's like you've wiped off the entire race. There's no more of that race anywhere. Now, I don't think that's been done. That definitely hasn't been done with Palestine. I mean, you can make the argument there are people, of course, there are people of that race still around and so forth. Of course, race is somewhat of a squirmy topic, but the idea of doing in the process of actually killing, that has to do with intent. If someone is actively trying to do that, you can make the argument they're not trying to do that, but I mean, I think more often than not, what we see in reality is people usually are, but they obfuscate because it's so hard to prove that someone is intending to do anything. People will just say, well, I really wasn't trying to kill him. I just put the gun in his face and I shot the gun, but I wasn't expecting it to go off. I wasn't expecting it to end in his death. I was just dropping these bombs in houses. I wasn't expecting these innocent kids to die. I thought there were terrorists there. I thought that there was Hamas in all of these buildings. And even though 90% of the structures in Palestine have all blown up, I thought that Hamas was living in all of those houses, and it wasn't my intention to get rid of those houses, but it just happened. I think most of us don't buy that claim. That's why it's a tricky thing to prove, but I think if we're being reasonable here, it's easy to see when genocide is being committed, when someone is acting in a way in order to get rid of an entire race of people. And the human race is a race, contrary to popular belief. I mean, a lot of people think the races only have to do with, Blackanese and and whatnot. But no, like Thanos absolutely exterminated half of the human race. Actually, it wasn't just the human race; it was pretty much all species, right? So I guess it's a little trickier in the sense that we're not dealing with the human race, just the human race. One, if we're being completely clear, I feel as if I'm arguing with Thanos right now, but the truth is, he wasn't intending to actually commit genocide, if we're being completely honest. I kind of arrived at this answer extemporaneously in my head, but he wasn't intending to actually kill the entire human race. He was simply trying to he was indiscriminate in his killing. He simply was trying to kill all of existence, half of it, from what I understand. I could be wrong with the facts here. I could be wrong. Let us know if I'm not. But I don't believe in the Marvel Universe, Thanos' intention was to kill a specific race. It was just to kill half of the people that were essentially in this universe, in the multiverse, or this universe, actually. And so technically speaking, I don't believe he was committing genocide. I think we need a new word. One of the things I will not do is muddy the word just in order to appease my argumentation, which a lot of people do. I think we need to come up with a word like multi-side, killing people across the multiverse in an indiscriminate way because you're trying to achieve some greater good. Now that is something that Thanos did. See what I did there? Multi-side. Now that should be entered into the lexicon of the Marvel Universe. You can pay some royalties to me, Krishool, the Esoteric Noetic. Send you my details, my Bitcoin address. Send it to me in the mail. But yes, technically Thanos did not commit genocide, but he did commit multi-side.
Natural
Painless?
event.
I felt the horror of that snap, buddy. It's still by far the worst experience of my entire life.
Record show Peter has lost his uncle to a mugger. Yes, his mentor to sacrifice his aunt to a supervillain and dated in high school. Statistically speaking, the snap is still fighting for second place. Okay.
You can call it whatever you want because you weren't
I
the one
experienced
erased.
far worse than that. And everything I did was intended to prevent you and everyone else from experiencing the same.
And who gave you the right to choose for us?
It's not a right, it's a responsibility. I was the only being in the universe with a power great enough to save everybody. And
Oh man, that's the argument of tyrants. You can use that argument to justify anything. There's no objective way of measuring any kind of responsibility. It's like, I have a responsibility to take care of everyone now, and I'm going to exert that, and I did that by killing people indiscriminately. There's no, I mean, it's just an arbitrary way of assigning guilt. There's no objective measurement of it. You're either morally culpable or you're not. Or I think it's a noble thing to take on more responsibility, but it's definitely never a justification for any kind of violence or against anyone for that matter. It's a sign of honor when people assign responsibility in order to do good things, but it's a sign of tyrants and evil when people use that as justification for committing violence and evil on others. It's nothing other than the plea of tyrants and psychopaths to say that they're responsible for everyone, therefore they chose to violate them, end their lives, or they chose to kill innocent people because they deem them to be responsible because they should have done more. That's the argument of tyrants. That's the argument of Thanos, obviously.
you know it best, Spider-Man. With great power comes great responsibility.
How dare
You got
you?
him there. You got it. That's with great power comes great responsibility. Yes, with great power, and this is such a key point. With great power comes great responsibility. As in, you should, if you are a good person, you don't have to, right? If you have more power, it is incumbent upon you, if you were trying to lift yourself into the realm of being a Jupiterian hero, as Manly P. Hall would say, right? And take on the burden of encompassing not just the weight of yourself, but the weight of everyone, or expanding the net of love and responsibility and taking care of more and more people. You are not obligated to do so. Just because I may have some amount of wealth that you consider to be so much doesn't mean that I'm obligated to spend my entire life sacrificing my energy and time to helping you. But I think it is the behavior of a noble person. But when people use that argument as a way to justify violence in others, that's when you move into the realm of tyranny. It's actually pretty simple to understand, right? You should, doesn't mean you have to, take on more responsibility when you get more power, but you do not have to. And if you argue that you have to, and argue that these people have not, you only become a hypocrite, because someone can only always argue that you have just as much, or the necessary amount of responsibility to justify crimes against you, or justify doing X and Y. And it's just this never-ending loop of, well, I see you as being responsible, therefore you should do X and Y. It's something we should do if we're trying to uplift ourselves and be better people. But it's not something you can apply in any kind of a moral capacity to dispensing violence or addressing whether or not someone should or should not do something from a definitive standpoint of the legal or lawful system.
That mantra can never justify what you did. Great responsibility is the responsibility to preserve the right to choose. It's not the authority to force what you think is right onto
What if
people.
they clearly...
Yes! Yes! I don't know who wrote this, but yes. Kudos to you with that. Yes. That is something Captain America, I feel, would say. And I guess most of the Marvel characters would say. That is definitely on point.
lack the ability to know what's right
They
for them?
still have the right to choose. You don't get to decide what's right, you got.
I was so frustrated when I watched this movie, and I got this weird feeling that the status quo was that Thanos was the good guy. Because a lot of people, one of my friends saw Thanos as being such a virtuous person because he was so honest and whatnot. And I think he was a fucking amazing character, right? Like, one of the best villains I've ever seen. But make no mistake about it, he was a villain. And maybe I just had this obfuscated worldview, but I just felt like a lot of people saw Thanos as being not that bad because, he was trying to save the planet. And I just hate those kind of arguments. But it's very clear here. One, in the Marvel Universe, I think it's very clear that he was portrayed as being a villain, despite what he was trying to achieve. And that you're supposed to think he's a villain, and that if you are in the minority and you don't think he was a villain, well, I think you miss the point behind the educated understanding of what was going on here. That Thanos, regardless of how good intentioned he was doing something that was just going against the natural laws of humanity and also the universe, and I would argue the multiverse and all of the verses for that matter.
Odd complex maniac?
So, let's say, hypothetically, that the majority of the people of New York decide to start supporting the Green Goblin, for example.
Ooh.
Would you let them do that?
Democracy, I love that.
Or would you do what you think is actually
I am
right?
certainly not going to go and kill all.
That's actually a really, easy question. If the majority, first of all, any kind of democratic system that wants to violate the rights of individuals is actually not a truly democratic system. I mean, it may be within the confines of what we call democracy in the most progressive understanding, but from the perspective of a protectorate, which is the definition that I would say was originally the most denotative, there's certain things that you would not be ruling over. You rule over non-human rights issues that don't require the infringement of people's natural rights, like what you do with combined resources, whether or not we choose to go to the moon or devote our resources to coming up with AI technologies that can cure all the diseases in the world, not on whether or not we go and get rid of, support evil people that are committing evil crimes. I mean, that would be a non-democratic issue, I would argue. So on that note, I absolutely would not be in favor. I don't think Spider-Man or any member of the Justice League or the Avengers would be supporting the Green Goblin or any person that was actively doing something that was bad. And if it was done democratically, this is the thing that most frustrates me. Like the understanding of democracy that I would say most people have is such that it's not a good thing. Just because you arrive at something democratically, we arrive at this idea that there's certain things that are criminal, right? It doesn't make those things criminal. If the entire world decides that it's illegal to be using your hands in order to, I don't know, touch yourself, it doesn't somehow become evil or bad just because the majority of people decide that. That's not how it's supposed to work. And the only reason people fall into this system is because they've been so attached to this idea of democracy that the group gets to decide, so it's good. The group deciding something doesn't mean shit. The majority of the people deciding that something is good or bad doesn't make it good or bad. You can make the argument that generally speaking, this might be the case. What we typically see is that when groups arrive at something, it might be moral. I'd actually make the opposite argument that typically because of mass formation, consensus, this weird or Ash conformity, you typically see situations where people tend to follow the group and don't think for themselves, don't tie them their thinking to their own anahata and try to discover what is right and wrong within reason and logic or within their own sense of intuition. They just go with whatever the group is doing. Therefore, they agree to completely despicable things, which we've seen throughout history, like slavery or infanticide. It's just the culture. People make this appeal to tradition argument. Just because a few hundred years ago it was acceptable to have people as slaves, and because it had been done for such a long period of time, doesn't make it right. Just because it was sanctioned by law, we democratically voted at the time that it was okay to hunt runaway slaves, and it had been passed in law that if you did not, you would be punished. You'd spend 6 months in jail. This is in West Virginia. this is in various states of the United States. Georgia, you'd be fined $1,000, which was a lifetime of money for a lot of people at that time, or you'd have to go to jail if you did not pursue runaway slaves. Now, this is the kind of stuff that you'd agree on through democracy. People have voted on completely despicable things in the past, like trying to mandate the rape of individuals because you're scared of some kind of virus that's going around. It doesn't make it right. And this idea that just because the group has decided to do something should make you support it is not a good argument. A good person follows their ethics regardless. As Captain America would say, plants themselves like a tree beside the river of truth when people tell you to move. When people say move and you are doing something that you know to be right, you say, no, you move. And that is the response of every person that has that flame of light that is working within them. That the atom seed of every warrior, the atom seed of every truth seeker. You're immovable. You don't behave in the realm of what everyone else is doing. And it's incumbent upon every member of the Justice League to have that mentality. And that's one of the things that I've always respected about Captain America more so than any other figure. I love different things about different characters in the Marvel Universe, but that is the representation that you see expressed within Captain America. This steadfast attitude, at least within the classical Captain America within the 50s and 60s, you know. But anyway, let's go on.
All of them. They will certainly be misled, but I will not try to force them to what I think is right. I will try to understand and see where they are coming from.
I respect
and
that.
then guide them and inspire them to do what's
right. Interestingly, a remarkably similar situation once occurred when the world actually did turn against Peter after Mysterio exposed him. He didn't quite understand and guide anyone. Instead, he asked a wizard to erase everyone's... What? Well, there you go. He asked a wizard to erase everyone's memory? Yeah, bro, that's it's definitely, I don't think that would be the right choice in that situation there. But actually, this is interesting. Let's break this down. Wait a sec. Peter Parker is in a situation. Okay, when the world actually did turn against Peter, so the entire world is after you. And when we say the world, we're talking about every individual here. I want specifics. All right. So let's say an individual is after you, is trying to kill you, right? And you've done nothing wrong, and that individual is actively hunting you. Yeah, within self-defense, you know what? I'm like, hey, look, erase that guy's memory. If the only way that I can, well, not the only way, but arguably, that's an argument you can use in order to defend yourself. It's like, I can either hit you, kill you, prevent you from harming me through one way or another. But yeah, erasing a memory in that situation about the previous events, I think that would be an appropriate response to that. And it would be well within your right of self-defense. Subjective, but arguably acceptable in that situation. So, I think I respect Peter Parker. I think he has the right idea about this kind of stuff.
That's right. That's the true responsibility that comes with power.
My second claim is, emotions have no place in decisions that shape the universe. The Avengers act from fear, anger, and guilt. I act from reason. I see the wound. I make the cut. Pain is irrelevant if it brings balance. Emotion clouds judgment. Logic brings order.
You can't.
There's truth in that, but it depends on how you're applying it. I mean, yes, truth, reason, logic in arriving at what is epistemology. But in terms of and ethics as well, I mean, people think that ethics is always in the realm of emotion. No, ethics is in the realm of logic and reason. It's emotional people that make the argument that they should kill one innocent person to save thousands of people because they're concerned about what might happen. They're always appealing to these amorphous, non-objective ideas in terms of what might happen. No one knows what's going to happen. Well, all these people are going to die unless, of course, we force everyone to take a magic potion. You don't know that. That's an appeal to potentiality. This is the mindset of people that are being emotional. Interestingly enough, it's Thanos that is working in the realm of the unknown. What you wouldn't call emotion, but definitely within the realm of non-logic. Things like probability, appealing to potentiality, and this is what you tend to do when you're making the kind of arguments that a lot of utilitarians tend to make, is not something that is classically considered logic. I mean, probabilistic rationale is arguably within the realm of logic, but it's definitely not a definitive way of looking at the world. You can always arrive at any justification based on probabilities, and it's so subjective. You can make the appeal that you see something eventuating as a likelihood based off of the variables that you think you have, but we cannot measure definitively what is happening with what is going to happen within the future. We can try to, we have approximations, but because that's within the realm of subjectivity, that mentality is definitely not worthy of what we would call logic. But that being said, a lot of people do seem to behave from emotion when we're talking about issues like this kind of stuff. And regardless of what religion or political alignments one might have, people often make arguments in the realm of that come from fear. I'd say most of the emotions that people tend to tap into tend to be fear, sometimes anger, but the baser emotions. But emotions acting out of love, compassion, they're usually in the realm of human rights. They're usually in the realm of respect for freedom. It's usually in the realm of choice. And these are the kind of emotions that fuel logic. You absolutely can be consistent with logic and emotion when there's this alchemical wedding at play.
Can't claim that, Thanos, when you yourself are a terrible emotional mess.
I didn't doom the future of the universe just because I refused to sacrifice beings I love. Beings that are actually insignificant in the grand scheme of things.
Acting pragmatic doesn't work when you're
sacrificed everything, even myself. I was ready for everything I love, even my own self, to be erased in that snap.
This is so interesting because someone like Thanos absolutely believed that what he was doing was the right thing to do. I mean, basically, he did sacrifice himself. And this is the problem with these martyrs, right? That are willing to... It's one thing if you're willing to sacrifice yourself if you're not actually sacrificing other people. You sacrifice yourself and you're working altruistically. You can argue whether that's good or bad. I would say it's a good thing. Generally speaking, we say that's a good thing when people do things that harm themselves because they're trying to help other people. But when you sacrifice other people, that's not altruistic. And this is the thing that really frustrates me, how people have this mentality. It's like, well, I'm forcing people to give up their money because I care about other people. That doesn't make you a good person. That just makes you like all the other tyrants around the world. They always use that justification. Granted, they may not actually feel that way. Granted, they'll just... pretty much all the tyrants that have ever lived say they're doing the evils they're doing in order to help other people. It's rare that they will have the honesty to say, I'm doing what is evil because I want to benefit me. But it doesn't take away the fact that what they're still doing is inherently wrong. If you have to sacrifice people in order to achieve your ends, you are still doing something that is wrong. If you build your castle in horrible foundations, it's still going to crumble. And this is the problem with this kind of worldview where you commit evil, or you commit good through committing evil.
Because I can see the bigger picture.
Acting pragmatic doesn't work when your emotions are the reason you were blinded enough to proceed with such a crazy plan.
I didn't want to do that. I sacrificed all I wanted to do what's best for the others. I kept my heart in constant pain because I know the mind is the path to virtue.
You are only acting out of trauma. When you saw your planet dying, you suggested genocide and you were laughed out of the door. When it fell apart, you were ashamed, and you developed a deep, selfish need for redemption. You were humiliated last time, so you would let nothing stop your plan, not even logic.
No, Doctor. You mistake trauma for clarity. My planet's death didn't wound me. It opened my eyes. I watched a civilization collapse because it chose comfort over truth, hope over balance. I learned that emotion blinds. That mercy can doom more lives than cruelty ever could. I didn't act for...
I believe what Thanos is saying is what he believes to be true. Because Thanos is known to be an extremely honest person. Just not, by any sane standard, a good person. Thanos calls the fall of Titan the tragedy that defined him. Yet when he finally had the power to bring it back, he didn't. So as to say he was scared, they'd remember the day he cried after everyone laughed at his kill half the planet slideshow. Yeah, look, obviously his experiences have forged his worldview. But I think there's no denying that he sacrificed a lot, paid the, well, what some may say is the ultimate sacrifice, which is death. But the greatest sacrifice is living that silent death when you don't speak the truth about things that matter, because you're worried what people might say about you, and you allow evil to befall. And I would say that if you're someone that is a man of virtue, a man of truth, and that destroys your soul more than anything. But Thanos definitely paid a price. Definitely is definitely not a coward, that's for sure. And that's why it's so difficult to call him like the classical evil villain. You know, because whereas I think most of us despise that kind of cowardice that you see within the classic Disney villain, very evil, conniving, weak, gets these big goons to do his dirty work. Thanos is someone that took on the responsibility himself. Thanos was extremely powerful, intelligent, and also honest. That's a virtue. But it really didn't matter in the greatest scheme of things, because what he was doing was fundamentally wrong, evil. And that being said, he definitely was the kind of person that was not motivated from some kind of like sinister desire as such. Well, it was a sinister desire in terms of the result, that's for sure. But it's not what I think would call classically a dishonorable framework. It definitely was not behaving out of cowardice.
From grief. I acted from vision. I saw what no one else would see, and I did what no one else would
You
dare.
sound like I once did. Back when I was a surgeon, I believed precision and control could solve everything. Pain, chaos, even death itself. I was so obsessed with logic, I forgot I was human. Losing my hands forced me to learn balance. Now I let my heart guide me as much as my mind.
Strange's newfound balance between heart and mind is duly noted. However, his heart may have slightly oversteered when he decided to rewrite the memories of the entire planet because one teenager was having... yeah. And there are many questionable things that Doctor Strange... If anyone's watched some of the more obscure Doctor Strange Marvel episodes and so forth, Doctor Strange goes into some very... But even some the mainstream movies, like he's the kind of person that has a tremendous amount of responsibility, because what could give you more responsibility than knowing so much? And no one knows more than Doctor Strange in the multiverse, with the eye and his understanding of the metaphysical world, as well as the Euclidean meat-space reality. This is one of the things I always admire about Doctor Strange, right? That pursuit for truth understanding. But with that, I mean, this is the kind of stuff that a lot of Christians would understand, because they see the realms in which he delves into as being very dangerous, because when you move into that realm, you're dealing with the kind of knowledge which, if you're not ready for, it can do a lot of damage. Light knowledge has a twofold ability to bring about an efflorescence of consciousness. You know, the way that light permeates from the clouds onto the plants and leads to their efflorescence and the growth, the development, and so forth. But when an individual or entity is not ready for that light, it burns. When you're a vampire, when you are not accustomed to that kind of energy, it can be extremely destructive. And understandably, knowledge is not for everyone if they're not ready to inhabit that. And it can lead to the kind of power of people that will use that knowledge for their misuse, will justify the use of this knowledge to override people's choice, commit greater evils, and so forth. And ultimately, it is a very dangerous kind of thing. And the kind of stuff that Doctor Strange exposes himself to is very dangerous. There are routes that Doctor Strange goes down that you think to yourself, oh my God, like, what are you doing? In some of the episodes that I've seen, he's willing to make the ultimate sacrifice. But the problem is he often is willing to sacrifice other people as well. It's not just himself, in order to achieve certain ends. And his classic line in the grand scheme of the multiverse, and the grand calculus of the multiverse, this is a small sacrifice. That is the road to hell. I have absolutely no doubt that the writers of this Marvel universe had full well that this is a very dangerous road that Doctor Strange is taking on, and this attitude of sacrificing anything, and it always leads to a far worse result. It's never justified. The idea of making these sacrifices is never acceptable, and this is the tendency that Doctor Strange tends to fall into, and it's this burden that he's always wielding because he can see so much. He's often tempted by the ring, so to speak, right? Like the Lord of the Rings, it's kind of like this thing which can corrupt you is so powerful, and you feel as if you can burden you can take on this burden, but it is opening you up to misuse, to use this in order to essentially destroy yourself and others around you.
I don't ignore emotion anymore. I trust it when it tells me
You always
what's
speak
right.
like a man examining a patient, pretending you see everything that others can't. You stand there, dissecting me as if I'm another case on your table, but I am not your patient. I am the cure. The universe is sick, and I'm the only
You're
one
right.
willing to operate.
Maybe I do have the bad habit of diagnosing. But allow me one last diagnosis. You've got a serious case of main character syndrome. You don't serve the universe. You think the universe serves your story. I used to think like that.
I like that.
I thought I was the center of the world.
Doctor Strange claims to have overcome his main character syndrome, a statement well supported by evidence. In Multiverse of Madness, he was, in fact, not even the main character in his own movie.
Until the universe reminded me I wasn't. The difference between us, Thanos, is that I learned to step out of the story. You still believe you're the only one who can write the ending.
That is so unbelievably powerful. That is so powerful. It's something I think, well, I struggle with, we all struggle with, because our life revolves around us. You know, it's and it's the act of to take on that burden of responsibility. You have to step outside of yourself to adopt this mentality of agape, consider how everything is affecting everyone else around you, but then respecting other people enough so that you also do not try to enforce your will upon them. That's the dynamic. And Doctor Strange is definitely someone that I think he definitely shows elements of that. He still is human. He falls victim to the power of that tremendous responsibility, the tremendous knowledge he has, that awareness he has. It's kind of like a parent that's always watching over their child, wants to intervene, but knows they shouldn't, because they're no longer children anymore.
Thanos, my problem with you isn't just
My man, Mr. Captain America. Okay, let's see how he deals with this kind of shit. He's not going to be happy about what Thanos did. That's for certain.
what you did. It's your entire worldview. You look at people and see
That
problems.
is exactly what I said, right? When I watched the Avengers movie, it was like, it wasn't the fact that he did what he did, Thanos did what he did. It wasn't just the fact that he did it. It's this entire justification. It's the worldview that really got to me. It's like, oh no, in case you're wondering, because there is a strong theme within a lot of the videos that I touch on, like I hate this worldview that the ends justifies the means. I hate this utilitarian, I'm willing to commit the greatest evils in order to achieve my ends. I also hate this idea that you can justify anything because it's just all perspective. These are the greatest evils in the world. This mentality that all the tyrants seem to have. Captain America is not someone that has that mentality, at least within the classic comments. He is someone of principles. You could be someone I completely disagree with on many things, but as long as you have strong principles, not fake principles like I'm just trying to achieve what I think is best for everyone, or I have these goals. Goals, strategies are not principles. I'm talking about actual principles in the real world, not amorphous ideas like strategies to achieve the perfect utopian future. I'm talking about respecting people's right to choose, respecting people when they're not inflicting any actual violence, any physical direct harm, or actual fraud and violations of people's natural rights, like respecting their ability to make decisions for themselves, this kind of stuff, right? It's a basic principle of every just society, natural law. It's not respected within the current legal framework at the moment, even generally speaking within the Constitution of the United States. It's been obfuscated with these ridiculous democratic ideas where the people get to decide on whether or not they get to violate individual rights. But fundamentally, when someone has some kind of principles on an actual definitive level, I can say, here's a man or woman of principle. I respect that. I know they have some limitations, but when someone doesn't have this, they can have a worldview where everything is justified, anything is permissible, and it is a very dangerous thing, to say the least. And arguably, that's a subjective argument, because danger is an appeal to what may happen, but unequivocally, it's also a wrong mentality to have. And if you're coming from the perspective that there is no definitive anything in terms of anything that you will not do, and you can do anything in a justifiable situation, then you're always going to be doing things that compromise people and things. And it's so easy to bend your subjective notions of right and wrong because they are not objective. You can fundamentally justify anything for the greater good. And people that have that kind of mentality are people that don't have any principles. Principles are what come first. If you do not have them, then you do not have any framework for real morality, for real ethics, which is the hallmark of every Avenger, every classic hero, every person that is willing to plant themselves like a tree beside the river of truth and stand for something greater than themselves. And it's something that I always admire, if you want to live a quiet life where you get along with everyone, then you should not have principles. But if you were the kind of person that stands your ground, regardless of what people say, you are immovable, you are incorrigible, like the Avengers, like Captain America, like these figures, then you are someone that has a strong sense of justice, strong sense of principles. And that is something that Thanos does not have. And Captain America does have, which I respect infinitely about the man.
To solve. I look at them and see lives worth trusting, worth believing in.
Trust them to do what exactly? Destroy themselves? Because that's what they do. Every time I've watched it happen on world after world.
Then you help them do better. You don't just erase half of them and call it mercy.
Exactly.
People have a right to choose their own path.
Exactly. Oh, that right there epitomizes Captain America. People have a right to choose their own path. We're talking outside of actual natural crimes, of course. But that is fundamentally the theme of... This is what I love about the Marvel Universe. And a lot of people make this argument that you're being so immature, that's not how the real world works. That's what all tyrants say. This is the fundamental argument I always hear from people is, oh, you'll grow out of your ways. You just haven't had enough experience. And this is... It's like, I hope to God with every fiber of my being that day would come where I change. Because if I did, I'd kill myself. Where I change my worldview. I mean, that sounds like a ridiculous thing to say, but I can't conceive of a reality where that would happen because it has nothing to do with maturity growth. It has to do with allowing yourself to warp into a worldview where you compromise who you are at your core. Most people go through life and they change themselves at the core because reality gets the better of you. Reality is hard. Reality destroys a lot of the principles that you have if you are the typical person that tries to just get through life. But if you are someone that does not bend to the vicissitudes of life when it comes to these things like principles, it has nothing to do with growth. I mean, there is no person being, if heaven and hell conspired against me to make me do something like commit genocide against innocent people like that, there's no way I'm going to say that's right. There's no way I'm going to change my worldview and say this is the mature outlook. It doesn't work like that. Granted, I'm human and I make mistakes just like everyone else does, but it is no sign of maturity to become complicit with this worldview where it's okay to do this kind of evil shit. And the thing is, it really is a lack of awareness. People often devolve in their thinking as they get older. People often are born into a world where they actually have the right worldview, but often get corrupted. It's not this progressive efflorescence we see where people get better and wiser. So a lot of the times people get dumber, they become less principled in their outlook. But those that I respect are the kind of people that have been able to stay steadfast in their worldview when it comes to doing the right thing, righteous conduct, and don't allow their knowledge to change them. And look, to know and not to do is not to know. If you truly know something, then there is it changes it changes the very fiber of your being that you don't do that bad, you don't do that thing that is evil. People don't truly know themselves or many of the things that they claim to know. That's why they often allow their worldview to be obfuscated. But if you truly know something in regards to right and wrong, a lot of this kind of stuff, you don't change yourself as you get older. I think this is the hallmark of what we're seeing with so many of the issues that are going on in the world. People have grown into this worldview where they have obfuscated their sense of justice and committed themselves to doing things because they're appropriate, necessary for them. They become mini Thanoses. And Captain America is someone that never falls to that way of thinking.
Even if it's messy, especially if it's messy. That's what freedom
Messy
means.
is a mild way to describe the end of worlds. Tell me, are you saying I should respect the will of the people, even when I know they're leading themselves to ruin? You'd really...
Yeah, absolutely. It's the hardest. I think about this stuff all the fucking time. It's like, and I'm going to be completely honest. There are times when I wouldn't be able to do it. Like when it's people that you're close to and you know that they're incapacitated and they're doing things that you know are just fucked up, it's still the wrong thing to do. Absolutely, it's the wrong thing to do in a situation if you're going to try to like force them to do something. But I don't know if I'd be able to do it. But the thing is, unlike Thanos, I'm still going to acknowledge that it is absolutely the right thing to not interfere with their decision. And the thing is, because the truth is we don't know what's going to be the best decision for them in the end. It's simply just your projection of what you think is appropriate for you. And it takes a very strong individual to stand steadfast when you're dealing with people that you care about, to just take a step back and let them know that you're here for them, but you can't force your will over them. It becomes tricky when you don't see those people as having the kind of capacity. And this is one of the most difficult things, because we all tend to have this attitude when we think we know better, we know best, that we have a much better understanding of what's going on in the world. And even though we may, it takes even more awareness in order to take a step back and to say, despite that, I still have to allow someone to behave in a way that they'd see is fitting for them. And granted, we fail. I'm certainly not perfect, but I always maintain that is the right thing to do. Unlike a lot of villains like Thanos.
do that?
They were not wrong. You were. But to answer that question, yes, you should respect their will, even if they're wrong, and you should work to guide them back to
Then
the
let's
right
test
way.
your conviction.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree with that. Steve insists the people's will must be trusted. This position, that's outside of violating other people's rights, absolutely. But if people wanted to destroy themselves, if people wanted to trust someone that they thought was a good person and so forth, and like they wanted to elect someone and you thought that was a bad person, you kind of have to respect their will. But it gets tricky when people are advocating for things that, well, it's not tricky. When someone's advocating for something that is actually in direct violation of your rights or someone else's rights, that's when supporting them is not a choice. Well, there's always a choice, but that's when you make the right decision. You don't support them. This position is somewhat complicated by the fact that the last time he encountered a popular movement gone wrong, he solved it with a vibranium. Vibranium. I'm trying to remember what happened. So the last time Steve encountered a popular movement gone wrong, he solved it with a vibranium. Oh, with his shield, right? Need more context for that one.
Hypothetically, half the universe votes for my plan. A referendum, a democratic mandate. They agree. Erase half of all life to save the whole. The people have spoken. Would you still fight me? Or would you respect the will of the people?
That's
absolutely brilliant, because this has real world implications. So the majority have decided that we're going to let's make this shit real. We're going to forcibly inoculate everyone with a magic potion in order to prevent some massive microscopic invasion from befalling this planet. All right, the majority has spoken. Would I support them? No. See, I didn't hesitate there. Yeah, that is because yours truly, the chocolate Nubian soul brother, doesn't bend to this nonsense. You as a majority don't get to decide shit when it overrides natural rights. Like, the idea that people think they can vote on things like that is absolute insanity. And the fact that so much of the legal system in most of the world is wired so the majority get to decide on issues like that is absolute insanity. And if it was I against 51% or 99%, or the entire world, the entire universe, the entire multiverse, I would still say no. And that would be the right response. Everyone else would be wrong in their viewpoint, and I would be right. And call that self-righteous, call it what you... And yes, I am self-righteous. I am confident of my own morals, more so than anyone. And that's the mentality you should have when it comes to this kind of stuff. You have to have ultimate trust in yourself over the majority. Like you should inherently know that it's the wrong thing to do, to freaking sacrifice other people. And if you cannot arrive at that, then you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself.
That's not a fair question. The people will never do that.
It's just a hypothetical.
That's not a good answer. Yes, people will have done that in the past. Absolutely. That's actually, realistically, I mean, I disagree with that statement. People would never do. People have done that. People do that shit all the time. The majority of people vote on things that are completely unconstitutional and violations of people's natural rights all the fucking time. Absolutely, it's conceivable. And that was the premise of Fantastic Four. Like, there was a situation where spoiler alert, where the general population were in favor of sacrificing an individual, right, in order to prevent a calamity from befalling the planet. And what was interesting is that was the status quo of the people on the planet. At least that we got that impression, right? And we saw this difficulty in some of the members of the Fantastic Four, or at least one of them, the main character, or at least playing around with that idea. I think it's fair to say that. But ultimately, it's never a decision. I mean, it's never the right decision. To presuppose that would never happen, I mean, I disagree with that. And to choose to support the majority is just unequivocally wrong. And if you can't do that, then you're someone that really should not be playing Captain America.
Say the people's will is sacred. So tell me, if they chose me, would you stand aside?
No, I'd fight you, because there are some lines you don't cross.
There it is.
Yes! 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 Fucking America! America! Fuck yeah! Unfortunately, America is not like that right now. I feel as if the America that we know right now would definitely support good daddy Israel. And would support Thanos in a heartbeat. But absolutely, that is the right answer. You fight every tooth and nail. You fight to the end. You fight the end.
So the will of the people shouldn't always be respected. You'd override them, impose your moral vision over theirs.
That's not what
It's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, and I would go a step further than Captain America. If the will of the people was to freaking sacrifice the will of the rights of other people, absolutely, I'd fight the people with every ounce of my being. And, of course, utilitarians would make the argument, then you become a murderer because you end up killing innocent people. I have not killed anyone. In terms of moral culpability, I am not responsible for the death of millions or trillions of people if they're all initiating violence on me. If every person in this universe wanted to see me dead, right, from a classical standpoint, right, because I love this scenario. I saw this in a game one time, right, because I had some special genetic component, right, and the only way to help the entire world was to kill me and extract it from me, had to kill me, right. I would have every right to deny. You could call me selfish and so forth, but if I ended up defending myself and every single person that tried to kill me, whether it was 1, 2, 1,000, 1,000,000, 1,000,000,000, ended up dying, I am not at fault here. They are at fault. But most people can't conceive of that. They can't think in terms of actual natural rights, in terms of actual justice, and always make these ridiculous utilitarian arguments that are bereft of any logic and actual true clear thinking, and show they have such a low moral IQ that they should not be having any kind of influence with these kind of decisions whatsoever. But absolutely, Captain America would fight tooth and nail anyone that wanted to override the natural rights of others. Now, granted, Captain America could probably sacrifice himself. And I'm not some kind of sacrificial lamb. That's the kind of thing Jesus Christ might do, bro. But I am fighting you guys tooth and nail if you wanted to do that. Just out of principle. Like, if you guys play this game where, like, you kind of just asked me to sacrifice myself, I would probably do it if it ensured saving the life of everyone. Maybe not. I don't know. But if everyone was like, you have to, otherwise we're going to kill you, I would take up war with everyone. Because you don't, address problems with force like that, through threats. This is what tyrants do. This is what people like Thanos do, and it requires strength in order to fight people like that. And I would much rather exercise that strength than capitulate to these genuflecting sociopaths that think it's acceptable to bow down to the almighty state and the will of the people just because the people say so.
You believe in democracy right up until the moment they choose something you find unacceptable. Then suddenly, you know better. We're not so different, Steve. We both fight for a vision. We both believe we're right. The only difference is, I don't pretend
No,
otherwise.
The only difference is I have principles, actual principles. You don't, Thanos.
is I'd spend every moment before that vote trying to show them another way. I'd argue, I'd persuade, I'd offer alternatives. I wouldn't give up on them. You never even gave them the chance.
And if they still voted yes, after all your speeches, what then?
Then I'd have to live with knowing I failed to reach them. But I wouldn't become you. I wouldn't decide their lives are disposable just because I think they are
You
wrong.
call that...
Oh my God, that's brilliant. Yes. I resonate with that. That is Captain America. I don't know who wrote this script, but someone's really studied the Marvel Universe. That is exactly what Captain America would do.
Strength, living with failure while everything falls apart? That's not virtue. That's surrender wrapped in hope.
The world isn't perfect, Thanos. It never will be. But that's not a flaw. That's what makes it worth fighting for. People stumble. They fail. They rebuild. That's how they...
Word. And just a passing point, like, Thanos' character is always speaking about virtue, and the thing is, virtue is very subjective in terms of, like, within our classical understanding. Granted, we take things such as honesty, obviously, as being a virtue, things like sacrifice as being a virtue. People can take things like, in terms of a virtue, we're talking about things that we celebrate, things that we have admiration for. Being a virtuous person, though, by some could be following the will of the people, following orders. It could be providing for your family, even if it requires you to do things that are shitty. Virtues are more subjective, and granted, we can agree on some. I think we can generally agree that some are good and some are bad, but the classical understanding of human rights, I mean, in terms of things that you should not do, and we arrive at this through the process of apathetic negation. This is called deductive reasoning. This is what Sherlock Holmes does. You know, once you exclude the impossible, no matter what remains, regardless of how improbable, it must be the truth. And this is how we arrive at the whole concept of human rights. Obviously, we all want different things, but the things that we absolutely don't want done to us, these are the things that we call human rights. And we arrive in the whole process of arriving at this. This is how we get natural law. We absolutely do not have the right to inflict our own will on people if they're not harming anyone else. And this realm, this respect for human rights, is something that should be adhered to. It's not even a question. The whole question of virtues, what we define as virtues, this is up in the air. I mean, I would argue that, yeah, there's some that are absolutely really, really good, but it's not a definitive. But the realm of human rights, this is what Captain America is supposed to champion within the classical literature, is the whole idea of a respecting choice, individual, unalienable rights. This is what the United States was based on, the Declaration of Independence. But unfortunately, the vast majority of Americans, and I will be so bold as to say this, don't understand this. I would say the vast majority of Americans, even the constitutional lawyers, right? Because the Constitution is more up in the air. It can be circumvented. There are certain things, we can have referendums, so to speak, where a process where people can add new laws or new amendments that circumvent the natural rights. But the actual highest law of the land, I would say, is in reference to the natural law, Rex Lex, call it what you will, and it's represented through the Declaration of Independence. And this is where we signify this idea of individual, unalienable rights. And the whole idea of rights is that they're supposed to be unalienable. It's not liberty. Liberty is something that is sanctioned. It's like, we'll give you a bit of liberty, but then we'll take it away. This is what governments do. But rights are supposed to be unalienable in the classical sense. And you don't get the right to fucking violate people's rights like Thanos because you have some greater good goal at hand. This is the argument of the tyrant. And this is why I respect Captain America so much. I would say Captain America in heart has always been my favorite character, but figures like Iron Man, because I have an obsession with technology because of his snappy comeback attitude, Spider-Man, have always been people that appeal to my I find technology sensibility. And then, of course, Doctor Strange with his unquenchable thirst for knowledge is someone that I absolutely resonate with. But yeah, Captain America at heart, Captain America all the way.
So you've made peace with failure. Tell me, Steve, if perfection were possible, would you accept it?
If you mean a world without suffering, without hate, then yes, of course I would. But that world
Then
doesn't
why did
exist.
you reject it when I offered it?
Offered it, killing half the...
Yeah, fuck you. Oh, yeah. So world, yeah, it doesn't accept it, but at what cost? If I could have a world where I had a 12-inch, if I had superpowers, yeah, of course, why not? But then you mention, oh, it just comes at the cost of killing lots of innocent people. That's not even a question. Why does that come? This is only psychopaths ask questions like that. It's like, no, Thanos. It's not acceptable. Yeah, I want that stuff, but at what cost? The cost is what we're talking about here. You don't get to do that shit. There are rules. Where it's like we're playing a chess game, but you're playing freaking, I don't know, some weird game where there are no rules. And this is the frustration that Captain America has with you. Believe me, I feel his frustration. Because these are the same thoughts that I had when I was first watching Avengers. It's like, how the hell does Thanos argue for this kind of shit? Oh, that's right. Thanos doesn't believe in morality. Thanos is an all-powerful god that has his own goals. He's someone that I feel as if you were to personify a historical character, it would be Marx that would represent Thanos, because he kind of had that mentality. It's like Marx did not believe in actual morals. He believed in strategies and goals. And I feel like someone that would represent Captain America probably Benjamin Franklin, at least in heart and spirit, all right? Because, I mean, the Declaration of Independence, this was based off of the works of Locke, who was a proponent of natural law. I mean, these are the fundamental principles that are supposed to guide America, but, of course, times change.
Universe isn't perfection, it's erasure.
I'm not talking about that.
Then what are you talking about?
I'll explain it in my next claim. My final claim is that the Avengers don't serve the universe. They serve their illusion of being its saviors. When I abandoned my first plan and offered to build something better, a universe without hunger, without pain, they refused. Not because it was evil, but because it wasn't theirs.
What was your new plan again?
You made me realize that this universe is broken beyond repair. So I offered to create a new one, balanced.
Broken beyond repair? The universe, I think, is definitely broken. It has problems. But beyond repair, it requires a lack of imagination. It's possible to change. It's possible to change yourself. It's possible to change people. And that's such a very dark perspective. The future's unwritten. Therefore, there's always the possibility that you can change it.
Abundant, free of suffering.
Right. So you went from kill half to kill everyone. Big improvement. Real character growth.
Your perspective is too small. I'm not killing. I'm erasing everything and starting over. No one will feel anything. They'll simply wake up in a perfect universe.
We stopped you because you're not the god of this universe who gets to restart it whenever you don't like how things are going.
Damn, I like Tony. I like Tony when he speaks like this. Tony's more the practical. I like how Tony's personality in this video is really expressed, witty, insightful. But Tony is definitely more of the what people would call the rational thinker. He's a consequentialist as well. The classic dynamic showing two worldviews was when, in one of the Avengers movies, Captain America is having a conversation with Tony Stark in regards to how to address the problem of an alien invasion or something like that. And Tony Stark wants to essentially put up some kind of a structure, prison, so to speak, right? Some kind of like technological device that's going to essentially shield the planet Earth from these invaders. However, that would restrict anyone from being able to leave the planet, which is obviously human rights issue, classic 101. And Captain America speaks about rights, all that kind of stuff, principles. And Tony Stark is obviously speaking about safety, the future, protecting everyone, trying to be Big Daddy. And these are the classic arguments between these two worldviews, right? One argues for choice, freedom, so forth, and the other argues for safety, protecting the population, and so forth. And this is the dynamic at play within the world. Governments typically try to find a balance between the two, but classically speaking, they've always represented through the natural law, within common law, the idea of the natural rights. And just over time, we've moved into this realm where rights essentially don't exist now. They can always be circumvented. But it's interesting here anyway, just to see Tony's witty, commonsensical nature kind of playing forth in here, and his understanding that, yeah, Thanos at the heart is a crazy person. Even as a rationalist, Thanos is kind of doing some things that seem a little kind of like lacking of understanding.
You did exactly that when I did things you didn't like. You played God with space and time to change the universe back into a way that suited you.
We fixed what you broke. We're not changing the universe to fit us. We're bringing it back to the way it was.
Which is what fits you.
Which fits everybody. Everyone agreed with our plan. Everyone supported
I don't think
it.
they will when their worlds start crumbling again. You reinforce the same system that failed before. Tell me, Tony, you said you don't trust me with restarting the universe, but you had the stones. Why didn't you do it?
Because I'm not a crazy psychopath who thinks he's a god.
But you were in that moment, whether you admit it or not.
I am so happy watching this video because it seems as if, and maybe this is just a representation of the Marvel Universe, but the status quo, the ultimate attitude is that Thanos is a psychopath. And for a while there, definitely during the lockdowns, during the last few years, it's been my feeling, just my general sense, that there are so many people that have been on board with Thanos' worldview and reality. And it you know, there's a silent death of the soul when you feel as if like the world is against you. But and look, obviously this is just a cartoon, but I truly believe that people ultimately know when they're acting in the right way, but often their heads get in the way. And they do things purely because they want to survive. They're in fight or flight. But most people, if they're being honest with themselves, know that Thanos is a villain. Most people, if they're truly being honest, know that and you listen to their tones, you listen to people when they make the kind of Thanos psychopathic arguments they make, and it's you know what's going on. Like deep down, you feel the energetic component within their words, and you realize that ultimately, maybe not on a conscious level, but definitely on a subconscious or superconscious level, they know what they're saying is built of air and imagination. And Thanos' worldview 100% is built off of this. Granted, it may appeal to what he thinks is the best way to make the world incongruent with his worldview and his sense of happiness for everyone, but it's definitely not something that is what we would call good in the classical sense.
You had the power to fix everything, end disease, hunger, war, and you chose not to.
My job was to fix what you broke, to bring everybody back.
And bring their misery back with them when you could have stopped it. You had omnipotence in your hands, and you chose this, a world still full of suffering.
Because it's their suffering to overcome, not mine to erase.
Why is Tony Stark sounding like Captain America? I like this. This is very cool. It is so cool to see this. All the Avengers. I mean, they're supposed to be like the Justice League, right? A bunch of good guys. Unlike the Justice League of the planet, right, which often behaves like a bunch of miniature Thanoses, all ruled by Klaus Schwab or some kind of like overarching weird villain like Bill Gates or something like that. But yeah, this is a world that I would definitely want to live in, where we have figures like. But wait a sec, what is Loki doing there? Actually, no, I take that back. What the fuck is Loki doing in this room here? Does Loki have anything to say? Loki's a fucking psycho. Well, Loki, in fairness, was not a part of the Avengers team. So, yeah.
Think wiping the slate clean makes you a savior? It makes you a coward who couldn't handle the universe as it actually...
I'm the only one who saw it clearly. You brought back 5 billion people to a planet that was already collapsing under its own weight. Within a generation,
We'll figure it out. That's
like
what
they figured it
people
out
do.
before. Your sentimentality...
I agree. I so much agree with Tony Stark. Well, the most frustrating thing I hear from people that have this worldview, that there's no other way, we got to do it this way, they have no belief in even humanity, like humanity's ability to overcome obstacles. Well, there's no way to do it this way. It's like there's such amazing things that are happening right now in the realm of whether it's AI, every space of technology, every space of growth, understanding. There is this ability of humans to innovate, to overcome. And people always appeal to this worldview where it cannot be done. Just because you have not seen something done in your lifetime does not mean it is impossible. I am extremely vigilant about not using the word impossible. I only use it when it is definitively within the confines of objective things. You know, it is rare that you will hear me say ever that something is impossible. But people are so quick, without even knowing it, to build impossible into their analysis when they say that it has to be done this way. There's no other way. I had no choice. These are phrases that only the weakest individuals that have given their sovereignty away tend to use. There is always a choice. There is always a way. And it's incumbent upon you, whether or not you were Captain America, Tony Stark, or Doctor Strange, to find that way. And that is the beauty of reality. There is always a way within this complex we have, our heart, our mind, our soul, to innovate, to reshape, to recreate, to make the world a better place.
They blinds
Your
you to
arrogance
basic
is exactly
mathematics,
why no one should
population
trust you with
growth,
anything.
resource depletion, climate.
You see people as
And
numbers
you
on a...
see them as children who need
what they've done
protecting.
there.
At least I'm
Yeah.
honest about making hard choices instead
Hard
of pretending
choices.
everyone can just
Snapping your fingers is easy. Actually solving problems. Actually believing people
believing
can.
accomplishes nothing when the ship is sinking. Action.
Murder isn't action.
Restoration
It's
isn't
surrender.
salvation.
No, murder is definitely an action. Oh, I see what he's saying in that context. Like, so, like, actually behaving in a way, like, actually taking it. No, it still is. It still is. It's just not a good one.
It's delusion.
Says the guy who wanted to kill literally everyone.
To save
That's not delusional. That's just evil. That's another thing people tend to do. They think behaving in a very evil way is delusional. No, delusional is when your thoughts are not consistent with reality. But evil, if we're going to define it in a classic way, is when you do things, I would say that are fueled by depriving people of their freedom, their rights, natural rights, the right to life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, outside of them initiating that on you. That's the classical understanding we have within the realm of common law, human rights, justice, the golden rule. But yes, Thanos is definitely an intelligent person. He just has a worldview that I don't respect, and more importantly, he does things that are unquestionably not good, evil. And I think it's really important to make the distinction, though, that whereas he's doing things that are bad, it doesn't make him delusional. I think there are some views that I think he's definitely more understanding of the world than the vast majority of villains out there. But he just has a worldview that I hope we've understood in the Marvel Universe is not a good one.
everyone, which is more than you.
You can't save people by erasing
and you
them.
can't save them by doing nothing.
It's doing nothing really to try to inspire people, to try to find other ways to. Anyway, maybe Thanos is a little delusional at times. Ladies and gents, that's probably the most enjoyable Jubilee video I've ever done. It's a shame it's not an actual Jubilee video. Kudos to Super Rami for coming up with that. I thought that was really well done in terms of this guy's understanding of the Marvel Universe, because it would have been so easy to make this video and make the characters say things that are not congruent with their personality, but having watched I've watched every Marvel, everyone's watched every Marvel movie, but I would say I'm kind of mid in terms of understanding all the Marvel universe, but I am a nerd when it comes to it. Like, I realize it's vast, and I have a massive respect and appreciation for the characters, and also the philosophy, the esotericism within it. And this guy's done a great job in being congruent with the universe and the personality types of these different characters. And it's refreshing when you see that in a video, and it's also very stimulating when you come across a video that touches on such powerful themes. These are philosophical, moral issues. These are the kind of topics I love discussing, and is able to kind of like move in between the different, because it's really good to be able to steel man other people's arguments. That's what a lot of people lack the ability to do. To understand how people make their arguments, and you need to be able to do that if you're going to make a video like this. And I think it was well done. But ladies and gentlemen, let us know how you felt about my video. Do you agree with Thanos? You agree with Captain America, Spider-Man? I'm all about Mr. Captain America, as I'm sure you've gathered, but I try to act like Tony Stark and Spider-Man in other ways. I think you got to find a synthesis, ladies and gents. But as I often say, There are three things that cannot remain hidden for long: the sun, the moon, and the truth. Until next time, kisses, hugs, and belly rubs. Signing out, your boy, Krishool, aka the Esoteric Noetic. Peace!